Hello and welcome to the SpeakEasy. My name is Paul Feesey, and today I'm joined by...
I'm Glen Scrivener.
And I am Nate Morgan Locke. Hello.
Hello. So recently you might have seen that we put out a video to do with Harry Potter. You would have definitely seen that. Don't know, I'm looking at you. You'll know.
I've seen it at least once.
You've seen it.
That's right, yeah. We made we started a series on franchise storytelling, and so we're going to move through different very popular franchises. So we started with Harry Potter, nice and uncontroversial, and then we have. I'm not going to tell you everything that's coming, but there's Tolkien of some books about elves and hobbits and things.
Okay, brilliant.
So that might be next.
And obviously people should go and watch the Harry Potter video if they've not watched it.
They really ought to.
Could you give a very brief though kind of summary for those who maybe push for time? Brief
So
summary.
I basically argue that though the evangelical backlash against the Harry Potter books when they first came out was understandable, that the Harry Potter story and stories taken on their own terms are deeply Christian. So that's the thesis, and then I sort of unpack that and go through some objections and think about different people's theories and viewpoints on those Harry Potter books. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we summarize the evangelical backlash in 9 seconds?
What are you doing reading those books? They are advocating for witchcraft.
Okay. That's your version of summarizing the backlash in 9 seconds. Should we get the Simpsons version of the evangelical backlash?
This is the clip
against
I
Harry Potter?
ought to have included.
Oh, wow.
And Harry Potter and all his wizard friends went straight to hell for practicing witchcraft.
There it is.
Yes, Harry Potter destroyed by Harry Shearer
Yes.
Nice.
playing
Ned
Ned
Flanders there.
Oakley Dokley Flanders. Yeah, so Ned Flanders is obviously a figure of fun within The Simpsons as the worst of evangelical Christians, or is he?
Yeah.
If you really watch that show,
Yeah.
he's actually a bit of a hero. And,
Compared to Homer, yeah.
And yes, of course, he's just showing that witchcraft and wizardry is not to be played with, dabbled with, or if you get the slightest sniff of it, you should throw the book into the fire.
Yeah. And there is, to steelman that side, there is a case to be made. And I guess we'll press into some of that problem with Harry Potter. But there was another problem that people had with that video that you made, which is, okay, you say Harry Potter is Christian, but can't you do that with any story? Or couldn't you press Harry Potter into a different framework and say that it's a Buddhist tale or a Muslim tale or a naturalistic tale? So what is it that makes it Christian?
So, as I say, I think if you push into the books themselves, you'll push into the storytelling that's taking place. You would study J.K. Rowling's kind of influences as she's pulling that story together. It's very clear that she is using the Britain of the 1990s, turn of the millennium, as the sort of bedrock for the story, and so the story takes place in a Christian country. Now, we could have an argument about was Britain really Christian at the end of the 20th century, but there are certain elements of British life and British culture and British society which are clearly Christian. And the Harry Potter books really take place within that context. Not only that, the stories themselves bring out Christian motifs, Christian imagery, and the shape of the Christian gospel. Now, I when making the video, as people will be able to see, I leaned heavily on the work of an American scholar named Dr. Carrie Birmingham, who has a fantastic lecture where she talks about Harry Potter and the baptism of the imagination. So people will be able to find that video online. And she does kind of a deep dive, and it all gets very alchemical. And she studies that stuff quite intensely. I think it is there, though I get the backlash.
Yeah. Do you buy it, Paul? Like, having read through the books, do you see sort of Christian motifs throughout?
Yeah, I think so. And, I guess the question is, is it more than just the air we breathe stuff? Or is there how deliberate is, Rowling in wanting to draw out some of those things? I don't know what she said specifically. about it herself, whether she's claimed it is or whether it's just a kind of. Because I'm not even sure where she stands faith-wise.
Yeah, I mean, so she is a Christian. She's not an especially conservative Christian, and certainly when the books first came out, a lot of conservative evangelicals or Reformed Christians would have been aghast that she's very pro-LGB, but of course, what she's most known for since the closing of the Harry Potter canon is, of course, her work to protect the rights of women, and so there's a kind of strange ally there as people confront the whole kind of transgender debate and issues around that. But from her faith perspective, certainly she would consider herself to be a Protestant Christian, though would not probably align with the vast majority of conservative Christians on a lot of social issues, though clearly one at the moment that's very hot.
And I think she has said in interviews before that, if you understand my faith, you'll understand where the story was heading. And I think she said that even before Book 7 came out.
Yeah.
And certainly the ending. Are we allowed to do spoilers?
I would have thought so by now.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dive into a couple of bits.
Okay.
We can do some spoilers in that if you really want to.
Yeah. Should we do that?
Yeah.
Well, because again, that was one of the things that in this series, I'm not wanting to tell you absolutely everything that could be said about Christianity and Harry Potter, because it's a 25-minute video. I'm trying to really address the principles of how did Rowling, I can never pronounce that. I always switch it.
Rowling.
Yeah,
Rowling. It's apparently
it rhymes
rolling.
with bowling.
Not, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rolling rhymes with bowling.
Mm-hmm.
Rowling
not
rhymes
bowling.
with growling.
Okay.
Put a G on the front of it, it'd be growling. But how did she write those books? What were the influences? What's the kind of deep structure within them? And how can you then take some of those principles and think through other literature or other franchise stories that you might be interested in or that might be kind of very popular in your sphere? In your sphere.
So that's where the whole series is going, and you're going to use like 5 different examples.
Yeah, five or six possibly. There might be another one, and then we might even do a sort of Christmas type special thing. We'll look into that. But wanting to kind of show some of the architectonic, stuff that's there in storytelling and in our most celebrated stories.
Yep.
So the ones that are making the most money,
Yep.
which is kind of a pretty good measure for what people like.
What resonates, yeah.
Or what are the ones that have been owned by the big film studios and are being, merchandise being churned out, and so you can get all of it. But yes, I've certainly not exhausted the things that could be said about the gospel according to Harry Potter.
But let's do that now.
Let's do the whole thing. Yeah, we've got several hours. But yeah, so there are loads of different kind of scenes within the films which I think are helpful. I've only got a couple of books here, but ones that I wanted to just have a little think about, because I think I've used some of them in sermons before and said, now this, if you really want to understand this thing, I think this part of the Harry Potter book series gives you the sort of the emotional resonance that will help you to feel what's going on, as well as there being some nice little kind of lifted mythic motifs that she uses. So I mentioned the 3-headed dog. How do you get past the 3-headed dog? With a song. You do that in the Labours of Hercules, and you also do it in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. There's another great one in there, which is the Mirror of Erised. Do you know this one?
Right.
So Erised is the word desire
in
backwards.
the mirror.
And you look into that mirror and it shows not your face but your heart's desire. So as Christians, often when we're speaking to people, we don't just want to say, hey, this is what I really love and I would like to share it with you. We're actually trying to help people to see what is it that they really love, like what is it that they're living for, and with idolatry as a kind of category for helping people understand sin, that's been used in various different ways. So Mirror of Erised from the Philosopher's Stone. The Chamber of Secrets. Now, we did go into this a little bit in the video, and I think Carrie Birmingham does a better job of it than I can do right now in her video, where she talks about Harry going to rescue Ginny from the Chamber of Secrets from Tom Riddle, and Fawkes the Phoenix comes in and there's a sword that gets pulled out of a hat. It's all very, very exciting, but it's got some very deep set Christian themes and Christian mythological themes set into it. So won't do that one. The one I want to do first, because I think it's the most surprising. It's one that people don't realize because, and we talked about this before, so often when we're thinking about a Christian illustration from a story, here's how it maps onto the gospel. We go straight to substitutional penal atonement. We're like, how is this person dying in the place of someone else to save them?
Right.
And we're looking for that, and we're saying that's the Christian bit. When you've got a book series which is as kind of well planned out as these, and you have a number of motifs and threads that are running through the whole thing, you actually see that she can bring out some elements of the gospel that I think we can overlook or that we don't realize. So this is from what's this, Half-Blood Prince, the penultimate book, and this is a situation in which Dumbledore and Harry are on the hunt for horcruxes. Now, just as a brief explainer of a horcrux, do you know what a horcrux is?
Yes.
You do.
There are 7 of them.
So there are 7, which is talked about as being the perfect number in the book, which is a big biblical idea. Okay. So there are 7 of them, and if you have killed someone, you can split your soul into different parts, and then you can put those parts of your soul into different objects. And so it's a brilliant literary device, because then it sort of allows you then to do the MacGuffin thing 7 times. You think about the Infinity Saga. It's like, oh, what are we doing this time? We're going to go and find a gemstone. Oh, off we go, right? Whereas in this,
which is what a MacGuffin is.
A MacGuffin, so it's this kind of object
token
which you then that pulls the plot forward. So it's quite helpful. So you could argue that R2-D2 is one in the first Star Wars film.
Pulp Fiction, the gold in the
suitcase thing,
the suitcase full of gold that you don't see.
And so you have this kind of driving thing. Anyway. That's to explain the context. So Harry and Dumbledore are in a cave, and they think they found where there's going to be this horcrux, and they go to this island in this middle of this lake in this cave, and they've had to pass through all these horrible kind of ghoulish figures in the water as they crossed, and they get to this middle bit, and then there is a great big kind of basin with water in it, or some liquid in it, and then in the bottom of it is a goblet. And so the question is, can you get to that goblet? Because that's one of the horcruxes. And you can't put your hand in. So you're prevented from doing it. So Dumbledore then magics, naughty magic, but he magics a little goblet. So because he realizes that this must be, this liquid must be drunk. You need to drink the liquid. Okay. So that's the context, right? You've got Dumbledore and you've got Harry. And this is what Dumbledore says as he's about to start to drink from this basin. Okay. Undoubtedly, he said, this potion must act in a way that will prevent me taking the horcrux. It might paralyze me, cause me to forget what I'm here for, create so much pain I am distracted, or render me incapable in some other way. This being the case, Harry, it will be your job to make sure I keep drinking, even if you have to tip the potion into my protesting mouth. You understand? Their eyes met over the basin, each pale face lit with that strange green light. Harry did not speak. Was this why he had been invited along? So that he could force-feed Dumbledore a potion that might cause him unendurable pain. You remember, said Dumbledore, the condition on which I brought you with me. So, you got the setup. He's going to drink... And as he drinks, he is going to refuse to drink anymore. But before they start, Harry has to commit himself to the plan that Dumbledore gives him whilst he is still compos mentis, right? Whilst he is still able to think clearly. We make this pact and you keep drinking. What is that? Come on, you guys, obviously. Gethsemane. Right?
That's
so...
enough.
When you think about, so it's no accident that he gets a cup. It's not like he gets a straw and just like, oh, magic's a straw. And just, no, he's going to have to keep drinking this cup, right?
Yep.
And as he's drinking the cup, he's going to keep on saying to Harry, I don't want any more, right? Don't make me. Harry stared into the whitened face he knew so well, the crooked nose and half-moon spectacles, and did not know what to do. Want to stop, moaned Dumbledore. You can't stop, Professor, said Harry. You've got to keep drinking, remember? You told me you had to keep drinking. Hating himself, repulsed by what he was doing, Harry forced the goblet back towards Dumbledore's mouth and tipped it so that Dumbledore drank the remainder of the goblet. So when we think about Christ the night before, the night of his betrayal, we see him praying in the garden. And what does he pray to the Father? He says, if it's possible, take this cup away from me. Yeah, not my will, but your will. And at that point, in a way, the pactum salutis, right? The choice to save humanity through the death of Christ on the cross that was made before the foundation of the world, the Father has to kind of hold his nerve in a sense, and to keep Christ drinking that cup such that the dregs will be drunk and the wrath of God will have been poured out and justice will have been done. That none will be lost. So just that as a really, like, I don't think I got Gethsemane to the depth that I think I've got it until I really kind of paused and thought about why is she setting up this story in that way. Anyway, that was about 40 minutes on that one. So we might not have time for another one. But certainly I think you've got these scenes and they are profoundly theologically informed. Yeah. And may well intrigue people or deepen people's understanding of what they read in Scripture. Yeah.
That's interesting about what stories can do. In a way that, okay, I read Matthew 26 and I might not be in tears. I read a made-up story about stuff that did not happen, and I can be in tears. And are those tears real? Like, is my emotion... am I just being whipped up by somebody who's manipulating me? Or is it actually organically connected to what Christ did? And so much of art can get us in touch with kind of what we're meant to be feeling when we hear the Scriptures. And should we do the ending as well? Just because someone in the office, so Emily in the office was interesting on this. She said some of perhaps the evangelical backlash against Harry Potter was because you had to get to book 7 before the really truly Harry Potter dying for the world sort of thing kind of happened, and so you can kind of understand why people, they don't know where the story's going, and put yourself in the shoes of someone in 2000. Where is the story going at that point? You don't know, but where the story does go.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's partly the thing about someone who's not just writing a single book, but then writing a whole series, which are then going to be, delivered over a period of time. And when we talk about this in the next Francis storytelling episode about the need to, you have to submit yourself to the piece of art in front of you, the work of art, the creation in front of you. And kind of suspend both disbelief and belief to allow the text to say what it has to say. Only once you've done that are you then able to really critique it. Now, if someone said, don't want to get involved in that, then great, fine. It's going to be a theme of the series. You're under no obligation to read these books or watch these films or see these TV shows. Absolutely not. If you do and you want to engage them, there are some interesting things for you to explore. But of course, people who held back and said it didn't want to get involved, well, you're fine. There's no obligation.
But in the end, how is this Christian?
Let's do it. So this is probably one helpful bit to look at. This is a passage from the final book, Deathly Hallows, and this time it's Harry and Hermione are in a place called Godric's Hollow, which is a graveyard. The headstone was only 2 rows behind Kendra and Ariana's. It was made of white marble, and this made it easy to read, as it seemed to shine in the dark. Harry did not need to kneel or even approach very close to make out the words engraved upon it. James Potter, born 27th of March 1960, died 31st of October 1981. Lily Potter, born 30th of January 1960, died 31st of October 1981. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Harry read the words slowly as though he would have only one chance to take in their meaning, and he read the last of them aloud. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. A horrible thought came to him, and with it a kind of panic. Isn't that a Death Eater idea? Why is that there? It doesn't mean defeating death in the way the Death Eaters mean it, Harry, said Hermione, her voice gentle. It means, living beyond death, living after death. But they were not living, thought Harry. They were gone. So you've got this biblical quotation, which you reference in the video, from 1 Corinthians 15, and on the topic of resurrection, and it is written on the gravestone of Harry Potter's parents. And Harry's then wrestling with that question. Later on in this book series, we will discover that one of these horcruxes may well be not an object, but a person. And so in order to be able to defeat the evil, this person may have to sacrifice themselves, and in sacrificing themselves will then overcome the evil that has been abroad in the books. So it is done at King's Cross, which is a nice, easy, open goal for anyone watching. And it is at the point of that the self-sacrifice is made, and this is the thing which will undo the evil that has come. So the whole series is kind of on that trajectory. As I say in the video, there is a kind of Fibonacci sequence. So you've got a little mini version of that story happening in the first book. As evil is overcome, how is it overcome? But then some more clues as to how it will then be overcome. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying there aren't, better fantasy books out there. There may well be, but there is a very clear Christian trajectory and a what Tolkien will call a eucatastrophe that comes through at the end.
We have a mutual friend, Caleb Woodbridge, who is quite the Potterhead. He has made the claim that in some senses, the world that J.K. Rowling has invented and is superior to Narnia in the way that it can communicate gospel truths. Yeah. And he did an interesting comparison between, why does Aslan's death on the stone table, why does that work again? Oh, there's a deep magic from before the dawn of time sort of thing. And he said, and I it was a new thought for me, but I think I kind of agree with him, that there's an arbitrariness to why the death of Aslan ransoms Edmund. And it only ransoms Edmund.
Yeah.
Whereas, Harry Potter turning evil back on itself, such that it is evil itself that slays the wicked, and there's something more Christian about Potter world than about Narnia. That sounds almost sacrilegious to say, but
I think absolutely, and part of the reason why I think that sounds so odd for people is because, of course, Aslan is such a clear Christ type. And whereas Harry is a much more almost generic Campbellian hero, right? The hero's journey. From
he is the herald of the Potter, though. So,
but in that sense, the struggle you get with this protagonist, whereas Aslan dips in and out, right? He's in a way, Aslan could be called a bit capricious. He just arrives, turns up, and then he goes away.
He's not particularly incarnate, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Potter is definitely one of us. Aslan's not one of us.
But and also understanding what is the nature of the Narnian world, right? So it does have a clear geography. It's not a kind of wonderland in terms of this kind of shifting, fluid, dreamlike space. You can go back to it. There is a real history that takes place with Lantern Waste and the Thrones at Caer Paravel. All that stuff is going through. and yet our engagement with that world is sporadic. We jump into it through a picture on a wall. We jump into it through a magic ring,
train station.
There's all sorts of different ways, and so it isn't laid out structurally in the same way as this kind of school book. Harry's in the second year now, and now Harry's in the third year, and you're just watching someone go. So that combination means that you have a less systematized theology and mythology in a sense, and also the argument that Lewis is doing, the whole planets of the medieval solar system thing, which is a different kind of poetic structure.
Yes.
So Michael Ward, Planet Narnia. The theory is that each Narnia book relates to. We're going to do the franchise on Narnia, so I don't want to.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? But so your typical knee-jerk Christian reaction is that Potter is less Christian, but actually Lewis might well be being structured by astrology. Actually,
Yeah.
And Harry Potter might be a more authentic Christ figure than Aslan in some senses. Although, Potter is a sinner, whereas Aslan is definitely not.
This is true.
But,
and what you sort of gain in the tangible character, with a desire and issues to overcome, you lose in the transcendent. And so, of course, none of them. It's not a perfect analogy.
No.
But there we go.
Yep. So is there a sense, is there something to the claim that, all right, well, Harry Potter's Christian in this broad sense of it sort of follows some kind of Christ pattern, but then couldn't you do that with every story? What do we say to that?
So yes,
you
can. And there's a reason for that, Glenn. That's because we live in Jesus' world, and all things come from you, O Lord, and of your own have we given you. It is the Lord who makes the heavens and the earth. He is the Lord who has made man in his image, and we're living in the story that he's telling, and therefore the human creative expression is governed by the materials that it has to work with. It is governed by, either accurately or distorting the story, the mythos that is woven through history. And so I'm not surprised to come to a text and find something that could arguably be compared with the Christian gospel.
Yeah. Which kind of brings us to a game that we could play, I think. A game which I put into Paul Feesey's hands.
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to explain the game?
Well, Thomas and I were tasked with coming up with take a film and try and Christianize it. Well, give it a description.
Bring out
the Christian aspects that are in there. Now, it's quite tricky because you don't want to be so obvious about what it is, but also you don't want to make it so vague. So we'll give it a go. We threw a few together, and you can see whether you can guess any of these. So here we go.
Should we put our hands up when we think we know it?
A man plays God, creating a kingdom for people to enjoy, but it goes badly wrong.
Bruce Almighty.
No.
Truman Show?
No. But so here's the thing. We did say though, this highlights
Evan Almighty. No,
this just highlights how
there must be a third one.
Things.
So say again: a man plays God,
creating a kingdom for people to enjoy, but it goes badly wrong.
To enjoy Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh,
Challenge.
Isn't it? What's the one where the guy? Is it Ben Stiller makes a world with little soldiers that come to life? I might have just made that film up, but I'm pitching that idea to Hollywood.
Well, we were trying to do something for Jurassic Park.
Creating a kingdom
for people to enjoy, but it goes badly wrong. In fact, it becomes a fallen kingdom.
Yes.
There you go.
Is Willy Wonka coming? Oh, yeah, I shouldn't ask you that. Okay. Go on.
Okay. What else have we got here? So we've got a Messiah enters a world to free its people from deception.
Matrix.
Straight away. Here we go. A girl from another land is able to unite warring tribes, sharing her crown among her people.
Mean Girls.
That is correct. It is Mean Girls.
Lindsay Lohan, a type of Christ.
A promised child can save humanity from a dystopian future and must be protected at all costs.
Lion King? No.
A promised child.
Luke Skywalker? No.
No, but this just shows the overlap between so many films.
Yeah.
A promised
child. He can save humanity from a dystopian future. He must be protected at all costs.
Oh, Terminator.
Oh, Terminator.
Terminator,
yeah. Dystopian. I'm getting stuck in all that young adult fiction.
Let's see what else we've got.
The Hunger Games.
A figure from beyond must return to the sky when her work is done.
I was about to say E.T.
I was going to say E.T. and then say her.
But you're on the, we did. I can't remember if we actually used this in our Ascendancy. We used our Ascension videos, didn't we? Where we had films with Ascension clips. Can't remember if we used this one or someone said afterwards, you should have used this. And we went, oh, yeah.
Oh, from another land.
Wizard of Oz? No.
No. Was
Go on.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. Oh, but she's horrible. She's
I
refuse to think of her
She's
as a Christ
practically perfect in every way.
Here we go. This is one. Thomas came up with this one. It was a good one. A man has to let go of his life in order for his companion to live. I mean, it could be anything.
Could be anything.
That's the thing. It's
I'll
give you
every war film.
Space themed.
Oh, Gravity.
Gravity.
Let go.
Which, this is one of those ones that...
He didn't need to let go.
Yeah, because...
the physics of it.
I mean, I don't know anything about physics.
The physics of storytelling and the physics of reality.
Like,
you know?
Yeah.
And
but that's the interesting thing. The interesting thing, though, is immediately you hear something and you go, oh, that's that thing. And you go, no, it's not that one.
Yeah.
Or it's that thing. Oh, no, it's not that one.
Yeah.
Because there's so much... There are a lot of those themes crop up in lots of things.
Yeah. I really enjoyed... so in my book, The Air We Breathe, where I talk about 7 values, the reason why I couldn't have an 8th is because you can't have 8. You've got to stick with 7. I couldn't have 6. I couldn't have 8. I had to have 7. But one of them, I was going to talk about heroism in storytelling, because I think there has been a change that Christianization has brought to the West in terms of the Knights of the Round Table and that kind of chivalry. There's a kind of heroism that sort of Jesus brings to the world that's different from ancient heroes. Ancient heroes can be as capricious as the gods at times, and sometimes they'll act for their family, but mostly they'll just act for glory and to be a hero, and they will be clever enough to sing the song or to ask the other sailors to sing the song to get past the sirens that are singing you to shipwreck. So they can be clever and they can be powerful, they can be wise, but they do it to save themselves rather than to save you. And so there's something about the kind of heroism that we recognize as truly heroic, and there's something about the kind of ending that we recognize as a fitting ending. So the Greeks would have tragedies largely, and if they ever had a comedy, then the reason why you have a comedy is because the fool who has calamity fall upon himself is just such an idiot that all the audience is laughing at him. The audience is laughing, he's in tears. It's a comedy. That's the only kind of comedy they would have. Whereas for us, we tend to want our hero to be laughing even as we're laughing, so that it's a joyous experience and the hero has gone through a journey and come out the other side with a happy ending, a eucatastrophe, and that kind of thing. So I think it's true that we live in Jesus' universe, but I think there's also a layering of culture that means we resonate with a story that has a certain kind of heroism and a certain kind of ending.
Yeah, but also that the nature of heroism is changing, and the number of stories in which a hero is the one who is true to themselves,
right,
choosing not to sacrifice themselves,
right, but
to remain, for whatever reason. And I mean, a classic one I've talked about on the Popcorn Parenting podcast. We did an episode on Moana, and then we did a comparison of Moana and George Bailey and the way in which they save their respective communities.
Okay.
One does it by sacrificing his wanderlust. The other does it by fulfilling her wanderlust.
Right. You're talking about A Wonderful Life as George
Bailey.
Yeah.
Yes. What did I say?
No, you
just said George Bailey. So just for
I forgot to reference the movie. So there is something about the nature of what we believe is right for us as individuals.
Yeah.
And when other people have claims upon us, and how that is a slightly shifting definition of what being a true.
There's now a post-Christian hero.
And I think that's one of those challenges that we face as we look at the stories the culture is telling, and as we think about what is being sort of celebrated within the various stories. So there is a backlash against Harry Potter at the moment. Not just because people, don't want J.K. Rowling to have written the books, but because they say, look at this hero. He is a trust fund jock who becomes a policeman. This is your hero? It's like, well, actually he was. But when you put it like that, he sounds like a bad person. And it's like, so how do we know? Well, why don't we actually look at the book itself and see the way that this plans out, rather than starting off with
the labels and let the story judge your labels.
Absolutely,
not the other way around.
And that, I think, is the play: is whatever cultural artifact you're looking at, particularly if it's a narrative form, as Lewis says, stop, listen, look, right? Again, we might look at this in the Lewis episode. There's a wonderful bit in The Magician's Nephew when Uncle Andrew is jabbering on while Aslan is singing Narnia into being, right?
Yep.
And the cabbie's standing next to him. And Uncle Andrew's going, oh, what is all this? Oh, terrible, terrible things. And the cabbie says, would you stop talking? Watching and listening is the thing at present. And lots of the time, so we're very good culturally at watching and listening. We do an awful lot of it. People are doing it right now. But there's something about submitting yourself to the story, letting it speak for itself, and then you will be better placed to speak about it. Whereas when we come to it with our pitchforks and our cans of red paint just thrown it immediately, well, you didn't actually hear what was being said, and had you given it the time, you might have realized it was saying something a bit different. But it's optional, as we say. You don't have to.
So the second kind of pushback people might say is, well, with things like Harry Potter, if we read Harry Potter, watch the films, does it not just open us up to getting involved with things we shouldn't be involved with, the occult and stuff like that? Is it the gateway drug into this stuff?
Yeah. I think there is a level at which people ought to be wary of things that have labels about witchcraft on them, right? I think it's an absolutely appropriate thing when the Bible speaks about witchcraft and sorcery. A lot of the time, it is done in very negative terms, and so completely understand that people will have reservations about doing that. As I say, if you read the books, I think you notice certain things about this kind of witchcraft and wizardry in which it doesn't map onto the occult as we would see it practiced in the UK today. However, very interesting, a book by Tara Isabella Burton, I referenced this in the video, called Strange Rites, The Remixed Religions. That's not exactly the right subtitle, but she's done some research into American expressions of religion and religiosity over the past 20, 30 years. And one of the things she highlights is the impact of the Harry Potter books on the kind of pick-and-mix religion that a lot of people are practicing. Now, it doesn't seem that there's been a massive upturn in the number of people who call themselves witches or Wiccans, but people have found in online communities discussing the books that they will call themselves Potterheads, and that now fictions, like quite demonstrably books of fiction, not claiming to be anything else, are becoming totemic for people to say, tell me about what you really believe. Well, what I really believe is I'm a Jedi,
right,
and I'm also a Potterhead, and I was raised a Buddhist
in the Shire.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
but you pull all those things together, because where are you looking for your sense of meaning and ethics and things? Well, you're drawing from pop culture as much as you're drawing from the official institutions of religion and of the church. And that's a very interesting development within people's self-identification.
Yeah.
That when Jedi was being picked as a thing on
the census
census way back in 2000 or wherever it was,
11.
You felt like, there's a whole bunch of people kind of being ironic. The rise of the internet, rise of fandoms, that's a legitimate thing to be able to say, no, I actually do follow the way of the Jedi.
Yeah.
If someone has said that, you sort of go, oh yeah, whatever. But they actually do.
Yes.
You know? And similarly with Harry Potter. Now, that doesn't mean I think that they're, maybe there are people buying the skeletons of animals in jars and keeping them on their shelves with their gemstones and stuff. But what you haven't got is a whole bunch of people.
No.
You haven't got
They're playing Quidditch. They're not joining a coven.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. They're doing that, and and then because of their morality that they believe they've got from their online fandom, they are cutting
off
Rowling out from
Joanne.
the world of Quidditch because she is now beyond the pale.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something about the re-enchantment of the world as well. I mean, but starting in the 1950s, and so Narnia is kind of doing that for people who are living in a modernistic and disenchanted world, and how much more are we reaping the consequences of that kind of turn? But what Lewis was trying to do was re-enchant our vision of the world, and he did it with... Well, there's the magic on this hand, but there's also the deep magic on the other hand, and there's a magical universe that you can access through a wardrobe or anything else. And I wonder whether there's something about, in a very modernistic, naturalistic age, talking about magic in a narratival form and in story is very different from even talking to animistic cultures around the world today and talking about magic, or going back in history in biblical times and talking about magic. That that platform of, is it 9 3/4? And St. Pancras, that is a proxy for there is another world, and it's just out of reach.
Through that wall.
It's just through that wall there. And there's something very different about saying, what if? And what if magic is real? To a world that, of course, doesn't believe in magic. Of course. And so the audience is different to the audience of what Deuteronomy is talking about. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Or the audience of what John the Revelator is talking about. That seems important to me. And all those points about the kind of magic that we're talking about in Harry Potter. And with all that said, obviously, if you've come out of a New Age background, or then absolutely, I would never want to force anything on anybody and insist that they dive into the Harry Potter world in order to get more of Jesus, because... in the same way that I wouldn't say go and eat meat sacrificed to an idol when you've been involved in idolatry the whole time. And that's what 1 Corinthians chapters 8 to 10 is kind of all about.
And there is something very interesting about, I keep sort of coming back to this, but this is capitalism, like capitalist storytelling, is that not only do you own the rights to the story, and you can just bring out even more shows and even more TV stuff, but the level of merchandising, right? So how are you expressing your new devotion to the world of witchcraft and wizardry? Well, you wear Slytherin pajamas.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's actually done through very oddly
merch.
Yeah, unreligious.
Yeah, so worldly.
Remarkably calculated and profit-making things. You are investing huge amounts of money in this, but you're doing it in this most sort of playful of ways, because it's meaningful to you, right? I've got Buzz Lightyear pajamas, right? This Toy Story world is meaningful to me. And I understand it in the context of my Christian faith. But for people who don't have a defined personal faith, they are pulling in as items they're liking on their social media accounts, and things that they can buy branded on branded lunchboxes. That's my identity. That's who I am. That's where I find my value.
And therefore, is there a way of talking to modern secularized people who would never identify as Christian, but they might identify as a Potterhead? Is there a way of talking to them that can make Christian faith sound plausible? Like, what do you think? Is this an opportunity to say, how you felt when Harry Potter gave himself, and the kind of values by which you live as a Potterhead, that might make plausible to them Christian faith?
I think there's something that about this world building idea and about this idea of these sub-creations, in which in order to communicate with the people inside the fandom, you sort of need to go inside the fandom. Okay. You actually need to go inside and show them from inside that world how this is pointing to something greater.
Right.
And so in a way that you might have a conversation with someone who wouldn't claim to be in any kind of fandom or wouldn't claim that they're invested in a world of franchise, you would say to them, now look at the world that we're in and see how it's full of meaning, and you would do the air we breathe, look what the values we've got, look at how we're sort of put together. You can kind of do that inside Hogwarts, if you like.
Yeah.
You can sort of say to people, okay, now, can you see what is governing this school?
Right.
And how atrocious it is when we don't have Dumbledore sitting in the headmaster's chair, when we have Umbridge. What has happened to this place? It has become, and it needs a kind of a rebel group to come over it. Now, where did she get these ideas from? Well, much of it is drawn from the deep Christian story.
But you're going deep there. You're not just doing the trivial thing that I did, which is Harry Potter, Herald of the Potter. Turn in your Bibles to Luke chapter 19. You're doing the deep thing of diving into that world, enjoying that world, submitting to that world on its own terms, and with the confidence that of course there's going to be Christian resonances here. But it's not the trite thing of, hey, this reminds me of that. Let me yoik you into the Christian thing.
But I think we have, in fact, that's part of the way that we think. I know there was a classic conversation, an anecdote that you heard Andrew Peterson tell after he'd done the glorious Behold the Lamb concert, in which some guy came out and told the story about how would a man communicate with ants. Well, if he became an ant, he might be able to do that. Now, that was clunky and awful and ought not to have happened after the gospel presentation that had actually taken place already. Okay. However, there is something to say when God is communicating with us, he communicates in his humility, in human flesh, and he enters into our world. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling amongst us. And there is that strong sense in which when we have people who, because of their relative comfort, because of the circumstances of Western society as it currently is, live a lot of their lives inside a created world, inside a sub-creation. And whether they're playing video games or they are part of, just cannot stop watching, Marvel films or whatever it might be, there is a longer conversation which takes seriously their interest in this, and yet can reveal to them, what it's really pointing to. And Carrie Birmingham's argument, to mention her again, she suggests that the Harry Potter books are the biggest missed evangelistic opportunity for the last 50 years. Because when people had their questions about life and meaning in the universe from Harry Potter, the church had backed away, put up a fence and gone, throw the book in the fire. Once the church had done that, where else were they going to go for those conversations? They were going to go online. The fandoms all went, the chat rooms as they used to be, and that's where their questions were answered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but we're not missing the opportunity. It's just we're a little late. It's just
Yeah.
we're just doing all the hot takes.
Book coming out. Yeah.
Doing all the hot takes. C.S. Lewis. I love his Chronicles of Narnia. I hope he writes another one. Yeah, that's Ignatius, the youth pastor. Anyway,
youth pastor.
Yeah. Speaking of ultimate youth pastors, Paul Feesey has been the ultimate youth pastor for many years until he joined Speak Life 2017. Do you see the segues right there?
That was beautiful.
Nice. In fact, Paul Feesey, you started coming here, I guess it would have been 2 years before that?
2015, I think, when we were doing the union
2015.
grad dip.
Yeah. You were students getting your graduate diploma in theology and pastoral studies.
Yeah, day a week
with us. And then we thought, oh, this kid's he's all right, isn't he? He's all right.
He's got chops.
We'll give him a run. And brought you onto the team, and we kept wanting to bring you on full time. You're like, no. See, because Paul Feesey's always been too much of an evangelist to be a full-time evangelist. And you're like, I'd actually quite like to, just be with people who aren't Christians. And you've been an associate evangelist with us for the last 5 years, but this might come as news for people, and it is with great sorrow that we say this is Paul Feesey's last SpeakEasy with the Feesey. Mm-hmm. And it's a hugely sad day for us at Speak Life, because Paul Feesey has been, and you are, an absolute gem. And we've loved having you, and even right up till today, I think, the laughter.
Even up to today.
Well, on a sad day, which is Paul Feesey's last day. The laughs have been flowing. I think pretty much everyone has been in tears of laughter, actually, today.
We have, we've had quite a funny day, actually.
It's
quite an amusing day.
And I think that's a sign of how emotional we've been, because we've loved having you, Paul, and we've put together a little compilation of some of your best and worst bits.
Your best bits.
From the last 5 years. So, Thomas Thorogood, roll VT. So, Paul, if you just take one of these green pills, you'll be right as rain.
I'm not really into green. I've always been more of a purple kind of guy.
Huh, whatever works for you.
And if you're enjoying our content, please do like it or subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and share it around. Share it out to your friends and your family and people you know. Sharing is caring.
Cup of tea?
But you don't believe in tea.
Sure, not for myself. My body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. I don't personally partake of tannin-based stimulants.
How dare you?
Sorry?
You're a tannin phobe.
I'm not afraid of tannin. I was just wondering if you want...
Some of my best friends work in the drink industry.
Some of my best friends work in the drink industry too.
Oh, the old some of my best friends are tea drinkers defense.
Well, I think you started that one. But look, do you want a tea or not?
You know what you are?
Someone offering you tea?
You're a turd.
Excuse me?
A tea exclusionary radical drink maker.
I don't think that's a thing.
Oh, it's a thing, and you are that thing. You, sir, are a turd.
Look, white?
Oh, a white supremacist too, I see.
Black then.
Oh, black or white, is it? What about those who like their tea non-binary?
I really don't think that's a thing.
I'm sorry, I can't even be around your exclusion and hatred anymore. You, sir, are the worst person I have ever met.
Oh, cuppa? Tea bigot.
You nearly done? It's been 20 minutes.
Just be a sec.
Paul, have you got the Burble Sing clip lined up?
Yeah, sure, I'll have it ready in a minute. Cheers. What's the matter?
Buffering.
Oh yeah, I want to try it over here, got a better signal.
Mate, were you on your bike? Bible! Wow.
Oh dear.
And the thing that I was just remembering about the If Phones Were Bibles is that we actually wrote it with me and you, both obsessed with the Bibles in our own particular ways. And then all of my bits just were on the cutting room floor. Thankfully, I don't think we've salvaged any of my bits.
Oh dear.
We just had to have Paul alone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's been good. Yeah, I've had a good. It's been a good time, and yeah, lots of good stuff. Memories from that. Like it's half that stuff. Some of it I've not seen for years. You forget you've done some of it. But yeah, no, it's been good.
Want to forget.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss working here. Miss you guys, and yeah. So thanks so much for having me, and I'll pop my head back in.
You must.
You better.
I reckon I'll be. I said, next week when you do your speakeasy, and you'll start off and you'll say, hello, my name's Glen Scrivener, and welcome to the speakeasy. I'll be like, rubbish, doesn't even rhyme. Worst intro ever.
Feesey on the speakeasy. Yeah, no, we've absolutely loved having you. What can people be praying for Paul Feesey and the Feesey clan?
Well, it'd be good if you just pray for work. I've got a few things in the pipeline that I won't kind of say too much about, but just got various bits of interviews coming up. So do please pray for that. That'd be great. And yeah, I guess that for us really as a family, as we move into a different season and a different rhythm of life, whatever that might look like. Kind of appreciate people's prayers on that. And actually, what I will say. Not as a specific prayer point for that, but one thing I will say actually is a big thank you to everyone, particularly like last year, when Libby was so ill, and I know here at Speak With Life were amazing in supporting us through that, and appreciate everyone at home as well, because I know lots of people were praying and have continued to pray as well, because she's still, although she's kind of better in the sense that she's up and about and doing things, she's still a sick child. And she will be, that she will live with this condition. So we've really valued everyone's prayers and support through that. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for all that.
And Libby right now, how's she doing?
Yeah, she's doing great. Like I say, most of the time she's living a normal sort of looking life, and day by day you wouldn't know there was anything wrong with her. So it's just a matter of looking after her and keeping on top of her condition, hoping that the medication keeps doing the work. And actually she's, you can, one thing she's got a little feeding tube that we still use for a couple of things. That's being changed in the next few weeks to a button, so it won't sort of hang down. So, do please pray for that. It's coming up in the next 2 weeks. It's pretty routine, but obviously it's another surgery. So, it's another trip up there and probably stay overnight and things. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of on the calendar, isn't it, for you guys? There's always
there'll always be another trip up to Gosh at some point, and things like that. So, but it's not, it's not sort of super regular, which is good. And most of the time, you get into the routine of life and what you're doing. So,
yeah. Well, bless you guys, and we love you and thank you. It's been an amazing 7 years since you first started as a student, and 5 years.
Yeah, gosh.
Here on staff. It's been glorious. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just gutted I missed all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I just do boring videos, talk to camera now. So you'll be much missed.
Well, I'm going to miss it as well. Miss you guys. So yeah.
Well, guys, if you want to catch up more with Speak Life, you can go to speaklife.org.uk, and you can sign up there for our Vision Evening, which is happening on the 20th of October, and you'll get the inside track on some of the things that are happening at Speak Life, including you'll get a world-exclusive premiere of our new evangelistic course, or our new incarnation of our evangelistic course that's been called 321 Down Through the Years, and I think that'll be exciting. I'll also be talking to Christy Mayer about the church and the meaning crisis, and there's well over 100 people signed up for that actually exciting Zoom call.
Yeah.
So, go to speaklife.org.uk/vision, and you can join us on the call and ask questions live then.
Exciting.
Do you want to round us off?
Yeah, well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that chat. For the last time, this is Paul Feesey, ending the Speakeasy. And big thank you to Nate and Glenn. And we won't catch you next week, but these two probably will. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.